Okay, at this time, we're going to, in order to keep up with our schedule and the time constraints that we have, we are very privileged to have Kimmy Lewis and Tim Dorr here this evening. They've traveled to Washington County to let us know their positions. We also have some questions that we're going to offer to them to answer. It's a different set of questions, which we will present.
Good evening. My name is Kimmy Clark Lewis, and I'm an old ranch gal from down south of La Junta, Colorado. And boy, can I tell you, it's green up here. I want to thank the Washington County Farm Bureau for allowing us to come up. What an honor to have me invited. We did get a little bit of rain down south yesterday, and we're pretty excited. When I first started to think about writing this speech, I thought, I believe in the future of farming. Then I thought, nope, that's from back in the Green Hand days. Then I thought, I pledged my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty. And then I thought, nope, that's from 10 years of 4-H and being a 16-year 4-H leader. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here before you running for House District 64. I am known as a freedom fighter because of some of the fights that we have done in southeast Colorado. I realize that House District 64 is 9 counties: Los Animas, Baca, Bent, Prowers, Crowley, Kiowa, Lincoln, Elbert, and Washington. And it is a rural district that is based on agriculture. Agriculture is the driving force for HD 64, and we need not forget it. And I want to bring that back in front of all of us and pat everyone on the back here from HD 64 in agriculture. God, who gave us life, gave us liberty. Can the liberties of a nation be secure when we have removed a conviction that these liberties are the gift of God? That's from Thomas Jefferson. It still rings true today. As a good Christian woman who has signed the cut pledge, I don't believe in giving you any more taxes, and we're going to talk about that pretty soon. I'm also a student of Tabor. I believe in Tabor, and I believe in keeping Tabor. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that there are a lot of things that we can do for HD 64. We have a lot of issues, and thank you for the questions. They were interesting, and I've done some research on those. And if I don't understand and know the answer, I'm going to let you know. This is my first time to run for office, and you'll be able to tell that tonight. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this opportunity. If you have a question, I want to hear it. God bless you all.
Well, good evening, Washington County Farm Bureau. It is good to be here tonight. Thanks for coming out on this beautiful evening and enjoying yourselves, hopefully enjoying yourselves here at the Candidate Forum. I'm State Representative Tim Dorr. Many of you I have met over the last 4 years in representing Washington County and the issues that face us. Farm Bureau, thanks for putting this on. Republicans of Washington County, thank you. Farm Bureau, thank you for 4 years of honoring me with the Friend of Farm Bureau Award. It is important that working with Farm Bureau, I have the exact voice that's needed to make sure that we're representing the rural parts of Colorado, from the most southern part down the Oklahoma border all the way up here. It's a huge district. And also thank you to Farm Bureau for their endorsement of me. They don't do that lightly, and I know that. And their PAC endorsed me, and they're working forward to make sure that my campaign will continue to be your voice at the state capitol. This is the participation part from you real quick. How many of you are satisfied with your state government? Raise your hand. Wow. So the next question should be real easy. How many of you are dissatisfied with your state government? Now, some of you don't have an answer to this, I guess, but I am too. I'm dissatisfied as well. Even though I'm in that state legislature, I'm dissatisfied. By the last 4 years, we have seen a war on rural Colorado. And that war has been in a much different way than you would see just a direct assault, although that has happened as well. But we saw it my first 2 years there. They came after our guns. And then they came after our energy by poking you guys in the pocketbook because they had some energy plan that was going to help Denver. And they constantly are attacking our water. We have a water plan right now that the governor has put forward. It's 880 some plus pages. Have any of you read it? Some people have, thankfully. I have too. And it isn't the best water plan for the agricultural community. It is a water plan that is Denver-centric, and it puts agriculture out there, but not in ways that I think is going to work. And so last year we had a couple different pieces of legislation. Farm Bureau worked with me on HB 1337, for instance, of which we made sure that we protected your water basins so that when something came up in water court, it was a one bite at the apple thing, not multiple bites at the apple. Those are the kind of fights we're having down there in Denver. And I want to continue to do that for you going forward. It's about priorities. My priorities are obviously going to be Washington County and the other 8 counties that I represent. And it's making sure that the people who I serve with, frankly, many of them are in Denver. Denver has 9 state legislators. You get 1. It's a voice issue, right? But if I'm loud enough and can educate them enough, then your positions in the rural part of Colorado will be heard loud and clear back there in Denver, and we can make sure going forward that agriculture and the rural communities that we all love and believe in aren't under continued attack. Time's up. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go right into the questions. Because we've already done the opening statements, and I'm obviously not awake. I apologize. Here we go. I'm going to start with the transportation systems question. Transportation is a topic that was just brought up to the podium. At the state level, the House District question, how would you allocate more funding for the state 2-lane highway system as opposed to the national interstate highways that are capturing a majority of our state and federal highway dollars? Kimmy?
Thank you. Transportation comes important to me because my late husband was a trucker. I would first audit Colorado's transportation spending to identify areas where money is wasted to free up for the most important projects. Next, I would work with our congressional delegation to ensure every federal gas tax dollar that Colorado pays to the feds comes back to Colorado. Currently, we have about 93 cents for every dollar we send to the feds. That way, we don't need to raise our state gas tax, which is already higher than the federal gas tax. As of January 2016, every gallon of gas, Colorado charges 22 cents for regular and 20.5 cents for diesel. For that same gallon, the feds charge an additional 18.4 cents for gas and 24.4 cents for diesel. If additional projects are needed, I could support pass tolls as a user fee for new roads. I will not support any increase in gas tax nor an increase in licensing fees. Consumers are overtaxed already, and better solutions are available than raising your taxes and fees. I will not support the other new idea of taxing all of your vehicles per how many miles you drive, because it is so far. I put several thousand miles on a vehicle recently. And then how much money is really wasted on these extra programs? Your scenic byways. Do any of you understand what a scenic view shed is? Wayfinding signs. Down in our area, they're putting out wayfinding signs. We need to find out, is that money that's curtailed for that, or is that money that we could free up and help fix the roads? And yes, I've been driving the 2-lane roads. I understand your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimmy.
Well, transportation, if anybody drives any place, anywhere in any part of Colorado, you understand it's an issue here. And it's interesting, by itself, it's not an issue of we don't have enough money. It's an issue of we aren't prioritizing the money spent where it needs to be. Let me give you a quick example. 3 years ago, I was called by county commissioners down in Los Animas County, farthest part of the district. And they said we were really having some issues here with one of our local state highways that's coming through into Trinidad. And so I called CDOT. And CDOT said, it is on our list. I said, well, sure, every road is on your list. But what part of the list is it on? They said it's part of the higher part. But you know what happened between the time that I made the phone call and the time that that priority list actually came out? there was an election. And Governor Hickenlooper was more worried about the Denver metro area than he was about that southern part of Colorado. And so that dropped on the priority list. So it's really about priorities. We have to prioritize where our funding goes so that the cattle that you have that need to get to market, the grains that you have that need to get to the elevator can transport on roads that are safe. It's a priority issue. I sponsored 1421 this last year that put priorities in there. It said that 287 was going to be a priority. It said that Highway 63 was going to be a priority. It said that Highway 71 was going to be a priority. That bill, unfortunately, died. But we need to prioritize. The other thing we need to do is take CDOT and say, you're not just about the Denver metro area or I-70 up to the ski areas. We need to regionalize their operations so that they understand their own priorities and funding can be sent to those regional areas adequately. That requires an overhaul of CDOT, but it's time we do that. Colorado is too big. There's 4 corners of Colorado. It's not just Fort Collins to Pueblo. We need to start acting like that.
Thank you, Tim. Go ahead, and we'll let you take the next question if you'd like, Tim.
Yeah.
The next question we have is the election process. What is your opinion on the caucus system versus the primary system? Which do you prefer for state offices and national offices in the state of Colorado?
So the question about caucuses versus primary, I think too often is blurred as it has to be one or the other. We can do both. In Colorado, this last election, or this last presidential primary cycle, I heard from over 1,000 people. I got email after email after email and phone call after phone call after phone call into my office saying, when do we get a vote for the president or the candidate to be the president? And the answer was, we don't have a presidential primary in Colorado. Now, I ran a bill last year that would have brought it back. I ran a bill again this year that would have brought it back. Now, some of the misunderstanding was we were trying to get rid of the caucuses. Not true. Nothing in the bills addressed the caucuses. The system can work in uniform. So I think we need to have a presidential primary because too many people felt Colorado was a flyover state this last presidential cycle. We need to change that. We had it in 1992. It worked fine. Then you allocate those particular delegates to the caucus system, and they get chosen. For statewide candidates, let's have the dual system as we do now. We don't need to touch it. You have a caucus option if you want to go through that option to get to assembly, or you can petition on. Those systems work. People in Colorado want to have a little more say when it comes to the highest office in the land, and I think a presidential primary, it's due time we have one. Now, somebody will probably say, oh, about open primaries. In my legislation that I ran, there was no open primary. There was an option for mail-in ballots to be received by individual unaffiliated so that they could then choose which party they wanted to affiliate with for the purpose of receiving the ballot so they could participate. They can already do that today. Unaffiliateds can show up to a voting center and say, I want to participate in the primary and I want the Republican ballot. So none of that would have changed. But it's time that Colorado, we're too big, we're too important in the national spectrum not to have a presidential primary.
In Colorado, we have a comprehensive primary election process. It's split between the caucus and petitioning system. It's a good process because it maximizes the most voter participation. For State House and Senate, we have the caucus system of receiving 30% of the vote, and we also have the right to petition on as a primary ballot. However, we do not have a comprehensive system for our presidential election, and it was obvious this year everyone wanted to vote. I support a primary system that distributes the delegates through the caucus system and is meant solely for Republicans. Representative Dorr introduced House Bill 1454. Every unaffiliated voter would have received 2 ballots in the mail. They would have received a Democrat ballot and a Republican ballot. How much would that have cost our state? That, to me, is an open primary. That he voted right along with the Democrats that would have allowed non-Republicans to vote in our Republican primary. This was clearly an attempt for liberals to vote in our primary and weaken our party. I support a fair Republican primary in Colorado and will work to pass it as your next state representative. Thank you.
As a point of order, we want to be very open, but we also don't want to make comments that are negative or attack an individual directly. So I would ask everybody to consider that as we move forward. It's important that we have a healthy and positive discussion. I'm going to introduce at this time the next question. It's a simple question on term limits, and I'm going to start with Kimmy. What is your position on term limits?
I apologize. I don't have a House bill to talk about on this one. Term limits. I support term limits all across the board because these rules are effective in keeping out big government liberals from the State House and can allow for elected officials to be held accountable for their service. Being an elected official is a service to your constituents, not a platform to advance personal agendas at the cost of growing government and betraying the taxpayers. Being a career politician is not who I am, and it will not benefit House District 64, nor will it address the problems of the district and the state. In my county of Los Animas County, we put term limits in, and it has been very helpful in getting out stagnant county commissioners that needed to go. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that if someone is doing that good of a job as your elected official, let them step down for a while, come back in, or run for a different office. I believe in term limits. In our county, in the county courthouse, little by little, they have taken the term limits away on our county clerk and on some of our other offices. But our county commissioners are still term limited. And as I look across the counties that I will represent in these 9 counties, I can see that they need some term limits in some of these counties because you're going to do a good job for a little while. I agree with that totally. But those people that get in there and think that they can't ever been beat or ever have someone step up and take them on in the primary, not going to happen in my world. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Before I get to the question, I want to clarify real quick. 1454, which was the primary bill, had nothing in there mailing out any ballots. We made sure that wasn't going to happen. Obviously, my opponent didn't read the legislation, but we did not have anything in there. There was a postcard that would go out, and you would check off which ballot you wanted to receive, and then you would be affiliated with that particular party going forward. To term limits. Colorado passed term limits in 1992. They said, we do not want to have professional politicians who hang out for years and years and decades. I think that was a good idea. Because what it does bring is every so many years a new flavor to the legislative body. It brings a new, fresh ideas, a new perspective, and that's good for Colorado. Now we've allowed, because I do believe, and I think it's right for us to allow, some level of local control. And so counties and municipalities could have decided if they wanted to continue term limits, have a restricted form of term limits that was different than the state constitution, and many have, and it's their right to do so. I will never get in the way of counties and municipalities being local and controlling their local abilities, because to do that is to get in the way of the people. That is the closest form of government you have, the local municipalities and counties to their people. But at the same time, term limits is very important for me. In fact, so much so that I restrict myself. I mean, it's 8 years, that's all I have, and I would never go beyond that. And I don't even think necessarily seeking another office would be the thing to do. I think term limits are, I can bring ideas. If I can get those through, great. If I can't, let somebody else give it a try after my term is over. I think I still have a lot of good ideas to present forward, so the term's not up yet, but I do think term limits as an overall practice of the state makes a lot of sense.
The next question we have is on the small business. We'll let you field that one, Tim. How do you promote successful small business enterprises when small businesses face multiple state and federal taxes? Income tax, payroll tax, unemployment taxes, inventory tax, which is a big one, workers' compensation tax, liability taxes. How do you mitigate the inventory tax on small businesses trying to grow their inventory to better serve their customers?
Thanks for the question. You know, small businesses are so important. They're really, in many ways, the backbone of our state. There are so many more small businesses than there are big corporations. And the small businesses allow small towns, small communities, not just to survive, but thrive. And so the taxation that they get is, it's overburdening at times, I understand that. You add the regulation to it to small businesses, and there are many people who just don't want to get into it. They just want to leave and walk away from being a small business because it is too burdensome, it's too complicated, it's too frustrating, and ultimately too punishing because the state comes down on them. When it comes to specific taxes, I think we need to look at as a state of how do we, not just for small businesses, but how do we look at the whole tax structure and reform it? I would love to see us get away where more money keeps in your pocketbooks than it is paying to the state. And to do that, we need to start listening to the small businesses. I've run legislation for the last couple of years which would give small businesses the opportunity to have better feedback to us as a legislative body. Unfortunately, I'm in the minority in the House. That bill keeps dying. But we need to start working with small businesses and saying, what is the biggest burden? Is it the inventory tax? Is it the employment tax? And how do we adjust that? And we also need to fight against the major overhauls that are coming down. How many of you have heard of Amendment 69? That's a health care amendment. If that passes, forget about small businesses existing in Colorado. They're all going away. And the big businesses, they're going to get up and just go right out of here. It's a $26 billion tax increase. Do you know how big the state government is? $25 billion. You're going to double the size of government through that amendment. You got to vote no on that come this November. It will kill Akron. It will kill Otis. It will kill Denver. We can't have that in Colorado. And other pieces like that. There's a minimum wage thing you're going to see on the ballot too. Think twice about that one. I want people paid fair wages, absolutely. But if we force a mandate on small businesses to do it, they're going out of business and people don't have jobs. Thank you.
As a small business owner, not a lobbyist, I am concerned about the overregulation and overtaxation. As a rancher, which I have to deal as a business, and a widow to a husband who had a trucking business and I had to run for several years before my son got out of college, I know the importance of how hard it is to get the bills paid, the family fed, and still be able to live. I was visiting with a young lady out in the hall about the drought that we've had and how hard it is to keep your business going in agriculture through drought. The only way to mitigate the cost of taxes is basically cut taxes. And that's what we've done in Southeast Colorado, and we've done it on our own. We started two groups called Southeast Colorado Private Property Rights Groups Council, and also the citizens opposing the Benton Metro District, which we fought on our own last year without any help from Denver. There was a new taxation level coming to Bent County, one of HD 64's counties. And 40 landowners from Bent County stood up and fought that. We hired attorneys, and we stopped that whole layer of government. Right now, the Lower Arkansas Water Conservancy District is at a standstill with water users, ditch owners, senior rights owners, wondering what's going to happen about the fountain dam or the fountain holding ponds. That's another whole layer of taxation, that Lower Arkansas Valley Water Conservancy District. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to stop taxes where we can, diminish taxes where we can, but for God's sake, keep taxes from coming to all of us in this HD 64. Thank you.
The next question addresses individual rights. The question is, how do you preserve our constitutional rights of free speech and right of conscience if private individuals and businesses are now being sued, punished, or fined for disagreeing with different belief systems? Subjects with relation to this are transgender bathrooms that are being movements and legislation and other directives are being written to promote and institute that. Same-sex marriages and servicing of same-sex marriage activities and other type of events. Tim, would you like to go first, please?
Sure. Thank you for that question. It's a very important one because it gets to the heart of some of the issues that we're dealing with as a country. And as a country over the last few decades, we have seen this erosion of our freedoms and our liberties. And they're all important. I don't care if we talk about property rights, that's important. We've got to make sure we protect property rights. But when it comes to the individual freedom to practice your faith, that is one of the most paramount freedoms because our country was founded on that. These founding fathers that we continue to look to for guidance, even though they're centuries older than us, they came here because they wanted and they sought religious freedom. And that religious freedom was put into the Constitution. And there's been this collision of the two clauses, the Establishment Clause and the religious freedom. And those two clauses have come to a head. And too often, our Supreme Court and our local leaders at the state legislative and national levels have said, your religious freedom doesn't mean as much as it used to. And that's a problem. Because as you erode away at that, the other freedoms that we have that we've built this country on get eroded as well. And that's why myself and other legislators, we continue to fight for and continue to work for legislation that will grant protection of your faith-based freedoms. So that if you don't want to sell a cake to somebody and you're in a private business, you don't have to. And if you don't want to engage with certain people because you feel you don't have to. Obviously, if you're a public entity or the government, we have to have different rules for that. But for private entities, we should never say that you have to take your religious freedom and punt it to the sideline. That's happened before. It was called the Soviet Union. They took religion and they punted it to the sideline. And then who fills that void of moral guidance? Government? I don't want to see that happen, ever. So I will fight and continue to fight for your religious freedoms and the companies that you have and the private businesses that you have, because if you take that away, all these other freedoms that we talk about start going away as well.
In the back of the room, I'm handing out constitutions because it's all in here, what we need to know. Individual rights, I would support a freedom of conscience bill to protect individuals and businesses who have sincerely held beliefs against being forced to participate in activities they find objectionable. The government should have no right to force their beliefs on others. The Bill of Rights protects individual liberties, but because of activist judges and liberal politicians, we need more specific protections to stop government from abusing individual rights. You see, the federal government is mandating from the Oval Office stating that they won't fund schools, according to President Obama, if you don't have another bathroom. You know what I tell Washington, D.C.? Get after it. Don't fund this school. If enough people stand together, ladies and gentlemen, we can do big things. I can remember when federal government told Montana and all the states, you got to go to 55 miles per hour. There was one state that didn't. It was called Montana. And if you've ever driven across Montana, it's really large. They didn't go to 55. Guess what? It went to court. Guess who won? Montana. Ladies and gentlemen, you got to dig in deep to fight some of these regulations, and you will get a sense and smell of liberty, and then you won't ever go back. Thank you.
The next question we have is, again, on the marijuana issue, Kimmy, and we'll let you take this one. How do you address the unlicensed marijuana growers in the state not paying taxes and abiding by state laws? How would you address the marijuana-laced edibles affecting our minor children in our schools and communities?
I do know that the edible marijuana is a problem for schools because I have two older sisters that are teachers. And I have talked to a teacher in Trinidad, Colorado that's had this problem in her schoolroom. I believe in medical marijuana, but it was the voters that decided all of these others. Now, in the town of Trinidad, they're going to even have a mini mall to where you could go in and out, and they're going to have all these delicacies. But ladies and gentlemen, this is another liberal issue that's eating away at the core of our freedoms and away from our society. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm glad to hear what I heard about your county that doesn't allow a lot of that to happen here. Because in Pueblo County, where my son lives, all of the marijuana that they're confiscating and they're growing, it's a real concern. We have to think of our children when we talk about edible marijuana, because they're the ones that are getting that. And how are our children growing up? I voted against the marijuana to be sold in Colorado. I'm hoping that these counties will stand strong and keep it from being out in the county, because there is a push, even in my county, to have it out in the county, have it grown, have it sold. The theft on these farms and ranches have become rampant in my area because I believe of the drugs. It's what the sheriff calls grab and go. They pull in your yard and they play like they're needing something. A gallon of gas, directions. If you're not there, they grab and go. They take gas, they take your chainsaw, and they turn it into drugs. It's going to heroin in Bent County. It's a real problem. It's a real concern for Colorado. Thank you.
Colorado is obviously in a unique position. We decided back 2 years ago to legalize, a little over 2 years now, almost 4 years ago, to legalize marijuana. It's actually sort of funny. We live in House District 64. I was running for House District 64. So my first slogan when we started out was Door for 64. Well, the amendment that became the marijuana amendment was Amendment 64. That slogan quickly went away into the trash can, because I don't believe Colorado needs to be known in this nation as the state that legalized marijuana, but we did. I didn't support it. I have 4 young children. I don't want them to be exposed to it. It's considerable problems. And the way the constitutional amendment was written for the state, it basically said, we're legalizing it, legislative body, figure it out. And it is a tough thing to figure out. We have no blueprint to look at. We're brand new at this. So we're trying things, and there's a bunch of ancillary problems. I see the sheriff's office is in here. There are a lot of issues that go along with the regulatory enforcement of marijuana. And to enforce it right, it costs money. And we saw that. After 2 years in office, I said, we've got to address this for our rural counties. So I ran HB 1090. HB 1090 was taking some of that marijuana tax money and pairing it off so that the counties and municipalities and law enforcement agencies could use it to help enforce the regulations. That bill failed, but it became the language, much of what became Amendment BB that the people passed. And now local offices like the sheriff's office have some resources to additionally to reinforce the regulatory factor on marijuana. The second side of it is the edible thing. I don't want my kids exposed to it because they see a little gummy bear, and that little gummy bear looks just like the one you buy at the grocery store, but that one happens to be laced. So this year I co-sponsored 1436. 1436 should be signed by the governor this week, and it will make it illegal for children to be exposed to any gummy-looking candy, marijuana-laced things, or there's a stiff penalty that goes along with it. Those are the kind of things that I see. I see the problem, I address it. I address it through legislation. If that legislation doesn't work, we go at it again. That's what you have. That's my promise and my always to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. The next question has to do with the daycare. It's the same question that we asked the commissioners. I'll repeat the question. How would you address the burdensome daycare licensing requirements to promote more licensed daycare facilities and/or daycare homes to allow and encourage more parents to be gainfully employed? In terms of financial survival of the daycare facilities, how would you address the financial challenges of meeting obligations and having competitive wages and benefits for employees with the ever-flexing number of children needing services in your district?
As a mother of 6 children and a grandmother of 9, I understand how important daycare is. I have a daughter just right down the highway here in Oberlin, Kansas, that runs the chiropractic clinic right in Oberlin. She takes her kids to daycare. They live on a farm and a feedlot. But we have to have daycare. But I agree with Ms. Layburn. The employment and daycare go hand in hand. The unfortunate thing is all these extra fees that they call licensing and regulations that they do to daycares make it awfully hard, and people don't want to start up new daycare. I understand in Lyman, Colorado, Lincoln County, they are starting up Head Start again to help with the daycare problems. We have these problems all over our district, but at first, as a state representative, I would stop a lot of these unnecessary fees and all of this bureaucratic crap that goes on in Denver that we need to clean out. Thank you.
Every time a daycare question comes up to me, I start thinking about who really is benefited by the daycare system. And it's hard-working families and single mothers who otherwise could not go out there and earn a living so that they can provide for their family. And when that's not allowed to happen, then they turn to somebody, or sometimes the government, for assistance because they can't make ends meet because there's nobody to watch their children. So we absolutely need a daycare system that works. And we need a daycare system that has minimal regulations. Yes, you want to make sure your child goes somewhere that's safe. You don't want to be playing with needles. But at the same time, we don't need so many regulations that it overburdens somebody from either opening the operation or worse, closing ones that already exist. We need to look at how we can partner with local communities, with corporations and businesses and small communities. One of the pieces of legislation I'm looking forward to running would give a tax credit to companies that came together, small, large, and in between, that say we're going to pool our resources and we're going to fund a daycare. And in doing so, everything in that daycare will be a tax deduction. The paint on the wall, the powder you use in the baby diapers, or the formula you buy. If you bring all that together, now we have a community that's supporting the daycare system. And maybe it's some of the larger businesses that daycare could even be in the place itself. So that mom doesn't have to make a choice she shouldn't have to make. Do I work? Or do I stay at home trying to fend for my kids because I don't have enough money to pay for daycare? Because that's wrong. And if a mom chooses life, that mom should be supported when it comes going forward with her choice. And I support that. And we can do better as a community. We can do better as a culture. We can do better as a state in supporting the choices that that woman makes to keep that life and go forward with it versus having to say, can I ever afford the promotion of this human life if I bring it into this world? We need to have legislation that speaks for that cultural change, and I look forward to running that. Thank you.
The last question that we have, go ahead, Kimmy. The last question that we have is going to be on school funding, but we're also to give every one of you a 2-minute opportunity to have some closing statements. So you might, commissioners, we're going to allow you to have a 2-minute closing statement also, so you might be preparing for that.
Well, when you're from a little town called Kim, Colorado, school funding is a real problem. It's a very rural school with very few students. And it isn't just Kim, Colorado, that has the very rural students. There's Branson, Pritchett, and the list goes on. In this House district, there are more and more, we have more land mass, but less towns, less schools, less children, because people aren't moving back, and people don't have 6 children like my late husband and I did and move into a community. Since 1994, Colorado's School Finance Act has been designed to ensure every student in Colorado has the same educational opportunity regardless of where the student lives. And in our area, that really helps. But that doesn't help finance that school. The negative factor, Tabor, so many things come into place. But I'm going to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I am a proponent of Tabor. I won't be taking a hatchet to it. It is there, and it is there to help us keep Colorado in the black. Other states are looking at Tabor now to see what they can do to get in the black. I believe that we need to cut other fees. Just like recently, the last several years, all of our propane bills went up, electricity went up. How much did the electricity go up here in this community? That hurts are rural schools. So there's things that I can do as a state representative to help rural schools and stand up and be your champion, because I graduated from Kim High School. Thank you.
The area that I represent has 27 school districts, and they range from small to very small. And they all have the same concerns. Because it shouldn't matter if your child goes to a school in Metro Denver or a school in Campo, Colorado. They deserve to have the best educational opportunity possible. And we, as the state legislative body who oversees the formula for schools, needs to make sure that can happen. But I'll tell you, the formula's broke, and it needs to be fixed. Because our priorities have been set from back in the 80s. We've taken this formula that's been the 1980 formula and tried to move it forward. And it doesn't work anymore. Because what has happened in the time is cost of living has gone up. And I don't care if you live in the smallest towns or the mid-sized towns, cost of living has gone up. But teacher salaries haven't at the same rate. And so you have like Eads, Colorado and Kiowa County, they can't hire a teacher. And I'm sure you see it here in your communities as well, because the salary isn't competitive. It doesn't meet that cost of living need. So we need to figure out as a state, where are our priorities? How do we offset that? One of the proposals we had for the formula this year, sadly it didn't pass, but was for creating a grant program so that we would be able to give rural school districts who are in need of new teachers a grant that extended itself over multi-years to help offset the new salary, to bring the teachers in so that they would then be able to come to the community and live and become part of that community. Because when the teacher is there and becomes part of the community, now education is better. We're also promoting cooperative efforts so that BOCES and other groups can start working with the school districts in creating online learning opportunities, real-time distant learning opportunities, like we have in Campo, Colorado. 59 students total. I'm not talking high school, I'm talking K through 12. But they have the ability to take AP courses there because we created a program that allowed BOCES and other groups to provide them with online learning from local community colleges. Those kids are getting the same education you can get in Denver, and they deserve it. Thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'm going to ask the county commissioners to come forward, please. We're going to transition to the last portion of our candidate forum. We're going to transition into the closing comments. We're going to do this in reverse order. I'm going to let the House district candidates go first on closing comments, and then we'll do the county commissioner comments. I want to point out this evening, in the most important part of this candidate forum is yet to come, ladies and gentlemen, and that's when these individuals are going to come over here and visit with you individually. And we allocated 30 minutes for that. Please take that time to visit with them and talk with them about questions that may or may not have been asked, or topics and subjects that you really want to talk about. But I want to point out, at the commissioner level, we went through 7 questions. We didn't get through 3 of the 10 questions. We talked about 7. We didn't get through 3 of them. We talked about the county employees, nursing homes, marijuana, daycare, housing, transparency, and economic growth. At the state level, we talked about 8 topics this evening: election process, transportation, small business, individual rights, marijuana, daycare, school funding, and term limits. We haven't even scratched the surface of all the problems and challenges that we face in our county, and in our state, or in our country, and we understand that. At this time, I hope I've given you enough time to get ready for the closing comments. And we're going to start right here. Kimmy, I'll let you go first.
I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. This wouldn't have been like it is without all these faces out there for me to talk to. If you're happy with the way things are going, then you don't want to vote for me. If you want somebody to mix things up in Denver and start asking all the right questions, then you want to vote for Kimmy Lewis. Because you see, eminent domain can come here too, in Washington County. National heritage areas can come here too. People can push metro districts on your county, another layer of government. it can come here to Washington County too. If you're concerned about those things, then you might want to consider voting for Kimmy Lewis. Because in Southeast Colorado, we have had to be freedom fighters, and it wasn't just me. It was a whole group of us. And we will continue to fight for what is ours, our private property, because private property is what makes us separate from all the other countries. And it's our Second Amendment right to secure that property and keep it free. The one resource that we have forgotten to talk about, besides agriculture, I noticed there were no questions on agriculture, and I was all ready for that. The one resource that's often forgotten is the entire equation in the human resource. Agriculture and rural communities not only produce a lot of wheat and cattle and corn, but seem to also produce the highest caliber of people. We are incredibly proud of the people who call HD 64 home. It has been a true honor to serve these people in our area to various capacities throughout my lifetime. I am the first state farmer for the Kim chapter of FFA. I was the gal that got jeans for the girls to wear out while judging FFA. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want something different to fight for liberties and freedoms, vote for Kimmy Lewis. Thank you.
Once again, I want to thank Washington County Farm Bureau, the Republican Party here, for the hosting of this event. Because these events are really important because they allow you to have an opportunity to hear about so many different issues. And today you only heard about a small sliver of the issues that we deal with at the state capitol. And the challenge I have, and the challenge I've taken on, being your representative for the last 4 years, is to be a voice that's loud enough to overcome the number. Let's face it, I'm in the minority party when it comes to the State House. And you've got to have a tact that allows the education of those in the urban areas to understand the importance of the agriculture and rural community. And I've prided myself in the last 4 years of doing that. Because when we talk about water, too many urban legislators think, well, I turn on the faucet and it comes out. What's the problem? They don't understand that downstream, their food doesn't happen unless the water is there. And that water is the resource that we cannot allow to be abandoned by not having the right voices out in rural Colorado. And I take to the Capitol my knowledge in the agricultural issues, working with Farm Bureau to make sure that we go forward with a positive agenda that protects the ranchers and farmers in our communities, and also my water law background to make sure that those rights, those water rights, are protected. And that's just a sliver of what you do at the state capitol. On any given day, you can have 20 or 30 different issues, and all of them are important in some manner or another. Education, transportation, infrastructure. What are we going to do with protecting our state resources? What are we going to do with protecting our food? And ultimately, what are we going to do with protecting our families? Because at the end of the day, if your family cannot have a better life tomorrow than what it has today in Colorado, what's going to keep you here? You won't. And that's not the Colorado I love and know. We're going to continue to go forward in Colorado to make a better place for your family so that you can look back and say, Colorado's getting better and better. And we can do that. But it's going to take you voting this year. I urge for your vote. I need your support. Thank you, and God bless Washington County.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Washington County Farm Bureau and Central Committee for holding this forum tonight. Very important to know our positions. I am a proven leader with a proven record of fiscal responsibility, integrity, honesty, knowledge, hard work, and success to make this county solvent. I get the right things done. Having served as your commissioner for the past few years has been met with challenges, difficulties, and responsibilities, some of which exceeded my imagination. But with these challenges, difficulties, and responsibilities, I will meet them head on. I keep my county informed by regularly attending various board meetings and giving the county reports. Washington County government is one of the largest employees in our county. It has always been my goal to ensure quality employment for our 140-plus employees. I've strived to maintain quality health care and services. I'm proud to live in this great country. I want to be a part of the responsible government that cares about its people in this county. I am a good, sound, solid leader, a fiduciary servant of Washington County, a policymaker, a conservative Christian Republican. I have truly enjoyed being your Washington County Commissioner, District 3, and would ask for your vote in the upcoming primary. Thank you, and God bless Washington County.
If you haven't guessed yet, I'm not a politician. I'm just a regular guy with exceptional values, I think. I have some exceptional skills and ideas. I'm very creative. I'm very positive, proactive. I think down the road on just about everything I can do. I think I drive my wife and kids nuts with that, but I look at all the roadblocks that could be in front of me. As I state, I feel there's a lot of economic ideas that can come to this county. If they were tried 15 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, some may be worth taking a look at. Business changes fast. The business climate changes fast, and there's opportunities that may come up that we didn't realize at that time, or weren't realized at that time, or wanted at that time. I want to also say that I appreciate all the people that I've talked to. I've had some really neat people that I've got to meet along this journey, and regardless of what happens, I feel truly blessed to get to know many. This is a great county, and there's a lot of really neat people here. I think ranchers and farmers and small business owners are some of the bravest people on this planet. And what you have to go through in so many different ways is just unimaginable. I thank the Republican Party for allowing me to speak and to be part of this, and I thank the Farm Bureau, and I ask sincerely for your vote. I really can't tell you how interesting this has been to me and how fulfilling this whole process has been to me. I think I'd be a great leader, and I think I can bring a lot to this county. Thank you.
I do want to thank everybody that took the time out from whatever's on television tonight to come here and listen to this and to get to know the people. We've been introduced to Bill Peoples just a little bit more tonight. Most of you probably are pretty much familiar with Leanne and I. We got to meet the candidates from the 64th, which I thought was wonderful, so I thank the two organizations and thank you for doing this. Once again, I want to be your Washington County Commissioner. Sitting over there that I brought tonight is a copy of the 2016 budget. It's wide open for anybody to come and take a look. I would advise anybody that's a Washington County taxpayer to go at least read the preamble of it. It's about 3 pages long. It's very well put together. Talks about it. We got the 2014 audit done, of course. We're in the middle of doing the 2015 audit now, which goes back and looks at all of our spending. So if there's any questions about funds, spending, or any of these things, please take the time to come and ask about it. The audit is, when it's done, will be wide open for everybody to take a look at. The 2014 audit is there at the courthouse for anybody to take a look at. We're getting close to starting the proposed 2017 budget. And as we progress through that, we'll ask for assistance from all of our department heads that the commissioners oversee, plus the other elected officials as they put together budgets for their departments or their the Justice Center or the nursing home or whatever it could be. So please come and ask us. We're wide open. We like it. When people walk through the door, we go, somebody finally showed up at one of our meetings. But it's really nice when they're there. So please come and ask us questions. We like questions most of the time. No, I'm kidding. It's your responsibility, I think, to come and take it and ask us the questions. So please, this year, I ask for your support in this election. as we go through. And don't forget, I ask for you to vote for me in the election. Thank you.
I'd like to thank all the candidates this evening. David has given me a very good introduction to the last part of this. Through 9:30, we're going to ask all the candidates to stay here. You're open to visit with them, talk with them, ask them those questions that you have. Don't be bashful and shy. At this time,